This is what I've been using. There's garbage all over this. Hey, Flappers, Flappy here, and I am here to talk to you about Dungeon Master screens. We're going to make some customized Dungeon Master screen inserts, so I'm going to show you how to do that. First of all, I can't recommend enough just that you get a Dungeon Master screen. More than anything, it's just a static thing that makes me not have to look through my computer. I use it even though I'm not in person. I stick it right in front of my keyboard here when I'm running games. These things are relatively cheap. You don't have to get a really expensive wooden one or anything. Just something that will allow you to put inserts into it. Let's take a look at the inserts that I prepared already. I've already set everything up, but just to show you, so what I do is I go into Google Slides, and I know that sounds a little strange, but I use Google Slides because it allows me to move images around the page at will. You open up a new slides and it looks like this, which doesn't look like a piece of paper at all. You have to go into the page setup. You're going to want to make it custom, and you're going to want to make it 8.5 by 11, which is the size of a piece of paper. Get rid of this junk, and there you go. You have a free piece of paper. I like to change the background so that it looks pretty nice. I change it to that lightest orange color just to give it that sort of worn out piece of paper, old D&D sort of feel. And then this is the sort of stuff that I've gathered around the internet, just looking up different tables or basically making my own through Google Sheets. First, I started with magic because for me, that can be the most complicated part of DMing a session, just dealing with the various things that magic throws at you. I wrote down concentration checks because this is recommended by like all of the pro DMs.
Reminders of things I forget often, like concentration checks, highlighted bright yellow to remind me to actually remember that shit.
They're just a tough thing to remember, so just putting a nice little like light pink highlight on it just reminds you as much as you possibly can. This is your best bet at remembering to do concentration checks during your session. Well, if I'm going to remind myself to do concentration checks, why don't I just put a couple of reminders for every spell that's cast, and I can just skim through this and say, okay, well, are they trying to do it sneakily? Because they can't do that if they have a verbal, somatic, and material component. So I take a look and I skim through this every time someone casts a spell, and then nestled between these two, I have the schools of magic all written down because I forget about those every time, and then someone casts detect magic, and it's like, it's the one. It's so tough to figure out what type of magic I'm trying to use. And then as an extra bit, and you don't need to add this if you don't want to, but I did, I put in an example of every school of magic being cast at a different level of spell. If I know, okay, they're an evocation wizard, they cast Fireball as an example of their power, and now my players know a little bit more about this NPC. And I also like to see what different examples. I try to include examples that I wouldn't expect to be in a list of spells in that school, just so I can see the overall range of how spells are cast. Last in this magic section, I just put the caster classes and what their sort of either arcane focus, where their magic comes from. Moving on to combat and damage, the very first thing I wanted to add here was movement, because every time I'm like, okay, swimming, that's different, crawling, that's different, high jump, how do you do that? And it's almost always half movement speed, but I don't remember that, so it's nice to have it all just written out for me in plain sight so that I don't have to look it up. I also have all of the damage types written here, and then also actions. I have this really neat table that I found. It's not in great quality, but I can read it from where I am, and it just goes through all of the effects of different conditions. It really helps just to be able to visualize it so clearly which things are affected by which condition. Also have improvised damage and damage severity rules, which are straight out of the player's handbook. That goes with the damage types here, and that way I can improvise any sort of damage that I want without saying something stupid like biting damage instead of piercing damage. Lastly, in the combat section, I have rules for cover. I always have to relook it up, and then it has to be a window that's open while we're playing. It's just better to have it static right in front of me, exactly what the rules are, and a actual pictorial demonstration of what it should look like. Let's move on to the next page, which includes what I'm calling the general stuff or the adventuring stuff. Skills and abilities is a very classic, just have it on your DM screen so that you don't have to be reaching for something from your memory. I don't like to have to search through my mind. I'd rather search through something that's written in front of me. Rules on sight are another one of those things like cover that's a little dicey every time you play. Setting DCs is another very classic DM screen. This one, honestly, I probably don't need, but it's nice to have it just worded out that hard is a 20. I also found this really helpful table online about what intelligence check you need to make about a creature to recall lore about it. It makes the check easy for me if there is a set rule put into stone that I refer to this table every time someone makes a check about lore. Anything that makes that mental work easier is a really good thing to put onto your DM screen. These first 2 pages that I just described, they're going to be your first 2 inserts into your little folder here that's going to act as your DM screen. These are going to be basically, you slip them into your folder and they stay in there forever. All right, let's move on to the next slide. And you know, since it's already saying it, you might as well. Liking this video helps the channel a lot and it'll spread the video to more people so that I can help more people, so please just click the thumb down below. The last 2 sheets are gonna get more into your unique circumstances, so this sheet is gonna get reprinted every time they level up. And it's just a marker that shows what their ACs are, what their passive perceptions are, and what their save DCs are. And then on top of that, it's any sort of personal information dealing with the characters. For instance, I have an alchemist in my party, so I use this alchemy table with some rules that we've homebrewed. And then down here, I have character cards, which sort of just tell me about some of those inner struggles that characters are going through. And I think, okay, something hasn't happened recently for Edgar. What is he struggling with? What can we sort of bring up in the story part of these sessions for Edgar, since he hasn't had a moment in a while? And then lastly, anything for monsters. This is going to be sort of your per session printout. You include all of your monster information, your encounter information, anything that's going to be relevant so that you don't have to search through your notes. Slap all of that information right onto this page here. The first 2 pages of this are going to be available on my Discord, so if you want to download those, I'm just going to post the screenshots or something in my Discord. The link to that is down below. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.